hate it when things aren't fair? When I was growing up, my mother had a very strict rule. We were never allowed to say, "That's not fair." Anytime we said that, she would always respond with, "Life's not fair." I'm sure all of you have heard that. As I have grown up, I have learned that if life were fair, it would be really boring. Looking at social media and fair and not fair can be kind of tricky. It can cause us to fall into a little bit of a comparison. Have you ever looked at somebody's post and thought, "Man, that girl goes everywhere"? Or, "Oh my gosh, that kid got into that college"? Or, "They made that team. I couldn't even make the Pee Wee team." That's because you're looking at a highlight reel. Years ago, my brother and sister-in-law got married in a beautiful wedding in Destin, Florida. They spent months planning this wedding. Here's a picture so that you can see. This is our whole family together, and it was a great day. If you look at this picture, it looks like the perfect wedding. But there is a lot to that story that you can't see by looking at the picture. It poured down rain. The chairs were completely soaked. They were supposed to get married on the beach, and we couldn't even get out there. We had to move the ceremony into the hotel lobby. Actually, it wasn't even a hotel. It was a condominium complex. People came off of the elevator while they were saying their vows. It was weird. It was awkward. The reception was outside. There was a DJ with cords and electricity running everywhere and lightning popping all over. The patio flooded. It was a hot mess. But you would never know that by looking at that picture because you're just getting a highlight. That's not the whole thing. So you might be thinking, what does this have to do with the Bible? Believe it or not, this has a whole lot to do with the Bible. One of Jesus' followers was named Paul, and we talk about Paul all the time because Paul lived a long, long time ago and he planted churches, but everything that he left with us is stuff that can still pertain to our lives today. Paul was a bit of a straight shooter, and at times he might have rubbed people the wrong way because he kind of told it like it was. In one of his letters to the church at Corinth, he says, "Oh, don't worry, we wouldn't dare say that we are as wonderful as these other men who tell you how important they are. But they are only comparing themselves with each other, using themselves as the standard of measurement. How ignorant." 2 Corinthians 10:12. What Paul is saying in no uncertain terms is, you can't compare your life to somebody else's. What they're doing isn't pertinent and isn't important to what you're doing. In the book of Proverbs, we also have a principle from Solomon. This is one of my favorite verses, and it's actually very special to us here at Wellspring because it comes from Proverbs 4:23. The verse reads, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." And that's Proverbs 4:23. What that means is everything that you are and everything that you believe comes from an overflow of your heart. If you're comparing your life and your gifts and what God has given you to make this world different with somebody else's, of course, it's going to feel different. It's supposed to. He created us to be very different. So, in talking about social media, how does guarding your heart what does that have to do with social media? Well, if we're guarding our heart, we're protecting it. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to go back to, we're going to guard our time. We're going to guard our eyes. We're going to watch what we're watching on TikTok. If we start to feel different or we start to make assumptions about people or things or events, and they're not exactly in a positive light, we need to set boundaries for ourselves, and we need to know that that is not what God intended for social media to be. He wants us to build each other up. Somebody else's success is not your failure. And unfortunately, social media allows a lot of us to fall into that trap. Just like my sister-in-law's beautiful wedding day, if you looked at that picture, you might think it was perfect. You might think, oh, they have the perfect life and the perfect family, and oh, they had such a nice wedding and they have so much money. Those are all assumptions. Those are your perceptions. That's not a reality. When we look at social media, we are seeing a highlight reel. we are seeing a little tiny bit. We are seeing a filter. We are seeing 15 different takes to get the right selfie. You guys know what I'm talking about. I know I'm guilty of making sure I have the right caption and it doesn't sound too weird. I'm guilty of helping people find the right caption or saying, I don't know, that picture isn't the best. That's not what it's about. If you are comparing yourself to what other people are putting out there, you are going to continue to feel down and left out. So, in an effort to fix those things, we have to go back to Proverbs 4:23 so that we know that we have to guard our heart because everything we do comes from it. We never want to feel like somebody else's life is greater than ours. So if you find yourself falling into that trap, what do? How do you fix that? You have to be aware of what you're thinking. You have to know the connection between your heart and your mind because you cannot compare your worth with somebody else's post. I know that you guys are going to have a lot to talk about in your groups. I hope this was super helpful. I am so passionate about this topic. I love it. I've actually given all the girls in my small group a book called Liked, and it's about finding your worth in a society that tells us that how many likes you have or how many shares you have on TikTok or whatever is where you get your value. That's not what God says. God says you get your value and your worth from me. I hope you have a great week and you have some great discussions.